These handcrafted oysters that we grow take on the flavor of their environment. For us, it's hundreds of thousands of acres of spartina grass, ocean water in, and that's unique to Beaufort. Our rivers don't have any freshwater influence. You can actually smell the ocean in the oyster when you put it up to your palate. And then when you put it in your mouth and you start chewing it, you're releasing those phytoplanktons that this oyster has been eating on, just like a good fresh salad.
One company has had a chef describe theirs as more like a cashew sort of flavor to them. So you start to get into that whole spectrum of the terroir, as they call it.
When Donnie first told me about this, I told him he was crazy. I never once thought I'd tell people I was an oyster farmer.
This is our spawning system. Each adult oyster gets its own spawning container. Each container has its own water source. We manipulate temperature on the system, and that's what causes the oysters to spawn. Once the spawning process is done, we collect all the eggs. We take a sample of sperm from all the males and then put that in a bucket of seawater with the eggs to fertilize the eggs. Then we take the eggs to the microscope. We'll make sure that the eggs are developing properly, and we'll get an estimation of how many of the eggs are fertilized. From that point, then they go into our larval tanks. That is approximately 8 million oyster larvae.
This is where the baby oysters live for about the first 14 to 21 days of their life, depending on water temperature. Their development is very much temperature dependent. The air that's going through the tank is helping to keep the food distributed. After about 14 to 21 days, they develop a little eye spot, and that eye spot indicates that the oyster is ready to settle on a hard substrate. This is really finely ground oyster shell. It looks just like sand. The technical term for it is microculture, but it's been ground to a size that there's physically only room for one little baby oyster to settle on each of those grains of sand.
When the oyster larvae are setting, they like a dark environment to set in. So the tank behind me, you see, is covered. So we have oyster larvae in here, and they're setting.
Once they go through that process and start growing their own shell, that's when we move them from a static system to nursery. And that's where we pump unfiltered seawater over them, and that's when they grow rapidly. And once they get to 5 millimeters in size, that's when we'll move them out into the wild. As even though we're pushing water over them, that's still not as good as what Mother Nature provides. And that's when they really have rapid growth. They can get to the raw bar quick.
OysterGro system has several different size bags. This is one of the smaller ones and one of the larger size mesh bags. And depending on when the farmer gets his seed, you could put a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch oyster seed in here. And as it got bigger, you would want to progress to maybe the middle size. And then as it becomes a 1.5 to 2 inch oyster or better, the farmer would want to go to this size mesh to maximize the water flow through the system. The bag itself retains the oysters, and the cage gives us additional floating ability. Easy to turn, because if you think about it, in one turn you can desiccate 1,200 to 1,300 oysters in one time. We have a 6-pack system, something we can put 6 bags in. Some of our clients like that. Some of the clients also like a 4-pack solution to their OysterGro on the farm. And then some of the folks even like this smaller 2-pack solution. Each bag holds the same amount, in 200, 220 or so oysters per bag. The 4 and the 6-pack are more generally used by the larger commercial farms, simply because of the quantity of oysters that you can get in each cage. You can put a bag in each slot. Again, we can have 6 bags. Simply pull the bungees up. So when the farmers are out on the boat, there's no tools or anything they have to keep track of. It's just utilizing the bungees and snapping them on, and then you're all set to go.
This is part of the experiment where we've been comparing the flipping frequency of these cages. We sort of figured that different sites are going to need different flipping frequencies. What we might do here might not be what you might do in Louisiana or maybe North Carolina. And so the idea was to get these cages out at multiple sites in different states and see what kind of differences we saw.
We've learned with the help of Sea Grant and other farmers in the area a relatively regular drying frequency. If you wait and dry every 2 or 3 weeks all year long, they get way too encrusted. The oysters stop moving, the cages get heavy, and the quality goes down. We've learned to flip here roughly once a week. In the wintertime, you'll have to be quite as frequent because the water's cold and things don't grow as fast and there's not as many settling organisms. And drying tends to be 24 hours in the wintertime, maybe a little bit less in the summertime because you don't want to stress the oysters too much.
What triggers that change? You said if it gets wintertime, maybe knock it back, but is that temperature based? Is it something that you're seeing on the bag? What are you deciding?
It's experience. You're looking for, you can see on this cage there's been a recent barnacle settlement.
Okay.
It feels like sandpaper when you touch it, and so you can still kill barnacles at this size because you can rub them off with your fingers, but if they get much bigger, you can't kill them.
Jonathan, how often do you flip cages?
I try to do them at least once a month.
So why once a month? Why not every 2 months, or why not every 2 weeks? Like what are you looking at?
I look at how warm this water gets right here, and I've seen the amount of growth that occurs in a month.
Okay.
And I mean,
when you say growth, you're talking about oyster growth, or what grows on your oyster?
Oyster growth, worms, barnacles. If I can keep mine cleaner and it takes me to desiccate them more, then that's what I'm gonna do.
Does it change much seasonally?
Wintertime, I don't desiccate them at all.
We're most worried about fouling, where we're actually getting fouling on the oysters themselves. Part of that is your hold time. How long do you have the oysters on the farm before you sell them on? Because the longer they sit out here, the longer they've got an opportunity to have biofouling take place. I'm also really worried about weight in the cages. If you have a cage that you're not desiccating on a good schedule, which for us in the warm months is about once a week, your bag itself, exclusive of oysters, might end up weighing like 20 pounds. And so, if you have a cage full of oysters that are maybe on the big side for the cage, your density's maybe a little high, but then you're carrying an extra 40 pounds worth of fouling on your bags, that starts breaking your cages really fast.
And as they grow, this leading edge of the oyster, which is called the lip, will begin to fan out. Your objective, particularly in floating cages like this, is that they bounce into one another gently and prune that growing tip off. And our goal is to have a clean oyster that's deep cupped, nice and flat like that, which is desirable for market. And this will be market size in about 2 months.
So when we're looking for this ratio, it's this 3 to 2 to 1. Is going to end up with an oyster that I think everybody's going to look at and say, "Oh, it's a beautiful cup, and it's got that gorgeous fan." I do know that sometimes people look at these smaller oysters, and especially if people are used to buying really large oysters, they think they may be getting gypped with this. But let's see what we got inside this oyster, because I think one of the things that we see with the farm-raised oysters is because of all this extra handling, I think that you tend to see, and we'll see if this is true with this oyster, you tend to see a really plump oyster that really fills that shell. And so I have yet to hand an oyster like that to anyone and find that they're disappointed with what they got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to just drop it into your hand?
All right. Oh yeah.
You can see how...
No, I'm not going to drop it in my hand. I'll show you where I'm going to drop
Eat
that.
it.
As long as it doesn't get you in trouble.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
As a consumer and an engineer, I really appreciate the technical aspects of aquaculture and oyster farming. It's a very rewarding business.
I was using a floating system for about 14 years. But it wasn't until I started using the OysterGro that I saw that I could really get a premium product for the minimum amount of labor. It's good shape, good cup. As long as you're managing your densities in your bags, that's what you're going to get, and the chefs are going to love it.
This is the day of the farm-to-table movement, and people want to know where the food's coming from, and there's no better way than an oyster that tells its story. They want to know who's growing it, where they're growing it from, and does it taste any different from certain areas of the bay. And so yeah, we have a story to tell. Yeah. It's just a different type of oyster. It's a different appreciation of Mother Nature. It's a different way to grow them. And yeah, the two of them together, perfect.
If you wake up every day and you're miserable and you don't like what you do for a living, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You know, I come out here daily and I love it.